Thank you for being here. Many friends here to support me, so I don't know if I'm better at getting friends than at speaking, but I'm happy that you're here anyways. Sea traffic management, what is it? It is an enabler, and I will try to explain a little bit about that. I want to tell you that our big test bed, the biggest maritime test bed ever, just finished this June. So we have some results from that, and we are keeping on up the work. So even if it's an ended project, we have other things coming up. We're all in for the challenge of the climate change. And even if I'm told to speak about how STM can benefit ship owners money-wise, I really want to speak to you about how we can help the environment, because that's a big task for all of us. We have this task, all of us, that we need to reduce our CO2 emissions, or all emissions. And STM is a big help in that way, because we can reduce our emissions without doing anything to the ship, just by sharing information and optimizing our routes. We need to connect ships and ports. One of the biggest loss of money is ships waiting to get into port. If we just had a little better information, we could change that. It's really easy, so why don't we do it? Well, we just have to decide to do it together. Because we all have to collaborate, we all have to give each other information. STM is, as I said, an enabler. It connects ships and shore in a standardized way, which means that wherever you go in the world, you can connect to services, to VTSs, to ports, if all are connected, if all follow the STM standards. So it's nothing you have to buy, but you have to build it. If you follow the standards and build it in a compatible way, you can connect, and you can take advantage of the 411 STM ships that are out there now, and we're raising our numbers all the time. The arrival to port is really the biggest saving we can do. And we have excellent people sitting in Valencia that have counted on, if the whole world were STM connected, or at least if the port that your ship was in before and the ports that you're going to and the ship are STM compatible, then you can get the gains of this saving to save fuel and by that saving the environment. So these are the numbers, and this is like the star. This is where we're going towards. I'm fully aware of that it hasn't happened now, and it won't happen for years to come, but if we all aim for the same thing, then we can achieve it. And to lower our CO2 with 20%, that's a big step towards the 50% that we need to save. We have one example from the test bed. this is just one case where a township, Tansun, was heading for Gothenburg, and early on we had a collaboration circle in the port. So her ETA was 3 o'clock in the morning. We did a collaboration circle in the port, called all the actors together, got them together, and said, when is your recommended time? When can you have this ship coming in? They told us that at 12 o'clock, all the port actors would be ready for her. Well, the master of Tansun had, of course, the contracts to think about and stuff, so he slowed down and came at 12 o'clock to Gothenburg. By that, he had saved RTA was 12, he came to Gothenburg at 8 o'clock in the morning. So instead, his ETA was 3 o'clock in the morning, he got a recommended time that was 12 o'clock, and he actually arrived at 8 o'clock. But only that little reduction saved about 1.5 tons of fuel. And that is around $1,000. And that was just one case, and they didn't even go out of contract. So this is a great example of what we can achieve. We also have some practical examples of what we have done in STM validation and how the shipping industry benefits from it. For example, if you have ever sailed in Bay of Bothnia in the winter, you know that you have to call on the Bothnia VTS or the ice info and get the direction ways. And how do you get it? Well, if you're lucky, they already have your email address, and you can get an email with the waypoints that you then have to enter into your ECDIS. What we do with STM, well, if you're not that lucky that they have your email address, you have to write it down from them reading it over the VHF. When you tell people outside of the shipping industry this, they go like, that's not true. You're not doing it that way. But we all know that we are. We're very analogic. And what we have done in STM is that the ice info in Sweden and Finland can send the direction ways directly into the ECDIS of the ship, where the ship can look at it and compare it to the route that they were planning to take, and they can also merge it into together with the route that they already plan up to the ice where they meet the ice. So that's a much easier way to work, both for the icebreakers, ice info, and for the ships. Enhanced monitoring, that is what the VTSs use. They can see, in this case, MSC Julie was planning a route through the Strait of Gibraltar, but they had a shooting exercise on the other side. And when my colleague Eva in the Tarifa VTS saw that MSC Julie had planned her route through that area, which they, of course, had put out on navtex and nav warnings, but she had missed it. Then you could easily just change the route and send back another route, a route a suggested route from the VTS. MSC Julie was really happy about how easy it was to get a suggested route. for the search and rescue, we have a service in the MRCC in Sweden where we can send out a search pattern to the rescue units. So also making life easier for the ones on the rescue units. Also with them having often small boats and a lot of sea, and to get the route directly is so much easier for them. We can also with this share the area of a search and rescue operation to vessels of opportunity, either if we want them to join or if we want them to stay out. Navtex versus STM. Well, that is also something that is really old school. And to have a Navtex that sometimes is interrupted and have to start working again, and you have to read. For the first, you have to change which area you're in so that it's the right area that you receive the Navtexes to. With STM, you can share your route, and if there are any nav warnings in your route and in your schedules, also time-wise, it will show up like an area in the ECDIS directly, which makes it much more visible. So that's also, and this is working now in the Baltic Sea and also on the west coast of Sweden. So sharing the route with STM or sharing the route with the nav warning service gives you back these areas, if there are any. Of course, you still have to have the Navtex and you still have to double check because it's in the rules, but it's easier for you to see if there's anything. STM avoiding close quarter situation. Because you can share the route with ships around you, you share the route via AIS, and you share the 6 waypoints. 6 waypoints ahead and one that you have just passed to give that leg that you're on. Then you can plan to not get into close quarter situations. And this is a service that is kind of hard to measure, because how do we measure if they would have been closer if they didn't have STM? So we have asked the navigators that have been using STM for these last years how they feel about it. Do you feel more safe? And this is the result. 69% feels more safe because they can see the other routes. So that's a perception that we were given the answer to. So we have been in this huge project with lots of ships and lots of service providers, but now we're on the cliff. What happens now? Where do I step right into the unknown? We have a project coming up, catching us, and we also are so lucky that the technology behind STM is picked up by the industry and carried along by the industry. So we have the infrastructure that will go on, and then we can connect with new projects. We have one project that I work in called STM Bolt Safe, where we focus on tankers and ferries in the Gulf of Finland. So it's a smaller space where we can have a higher percentage of ships that have STM as a first implementation. We also have a project called Efficient Flow, where we work with ferries in and out from Stockholm to Åbo. And there we use STM and the schedule to adjust the ships so they don't meet in narrow passages, but so they can have a flow all the way in. If you go with 8 knots, you can have a green passage. You don't have to slow down, or you have to go with 5 knots, and then you won't have any narrow passages. So optimizing the ferry traffic in the archipelago. We also have a project called RTF, Real-Time Ferries, where we use the technology for the passengers to be able to give them just-in-time information. If the ferry is delayed, then which trains can I catch after coming ashore, which buses, so that we aligned the ferry traffic, because the ferry traffic is not in Google Maps right now. If you want to go to, I wanted to go to München this summer, then Google Maps shows Cajsa Rostock, and not any other ferry lines. And it also says, warning, this route has a ferry. So RTF wants to connect and make people aware that there are ferries, and that's a possible way to go. That's kind of all from me. I'm in booth D11, so please come and talk to me about STM and how we can connect and how we can find new solutions and new services for the mariners. And if you like to have the routes, if you find any advantages of that, then we can build projects. We love projects. So that we spread STM around the world. Yes?
Thank you. Huge. Now, thank you, Cajsa. You said so many good things, but if you go to this STM on board, how much will it cost for a shipping company?
Well, the STM is an update to the ECDIS, so it's not very much. If you join any projects, you can get financed by the project. But buying STM from the manufacturers that have developed STM is an update to the ECDIS. Then we have the cost of educating the navigators. So yeah, about 10 of these trips with Tansund would pay it.
Mm. And do you think that IMO will request STM in the future?
We love IMO, and they love us. So we're really happy about that, but they're slow. You know that. So if there is going to be, if IMO is going to say that you should have any kind of management system, I think that STM is first in line.